Sir, we have seen recently so many buzz and protest against this GMO foods by the people. So my question is ki are activities like this genetically modified organisms and in human or within the scope of human? If yes, then why?
See what we said when we are talking about this harmony in nature, we said that if you look at what human being has to do essentially, with these 4 orders is that as far as the first 3 orders are concerned, the physical order, the pranic order, the animal order, these 3 orders as far as they are concerned, what it needs to do, they themselves are in a definite conduct, right. They are exhibiting definite conduct, they are in harmony, they are in relationship of mutual fulfillment among themselves, right. So, we do not have to really disturb them, we do not have to go about modifying them, right. What we need to do is that when we are interacting with them, right, we ensure their definite order, their definite conduct, right. And in order to do that, what we need to do is to help them, to ensure their activity within themselves, their innateness and their inheritance. Or at least not violate it. So, for example, when I am interacting with the plants and trees, right, I will facilitate this respiration, okay, or at least not block or violate this, that is I will ensure that the air that the plant is going to breathe, okay, is not polluted, okay, or is not dried up and all that. Okay. Then I will help the plant to grow or at least not violate the process of growth, and I will ensure that the seed of the plant is maintained, so that it can continue generation after generation. So, I will preserve all this or I will facilitate all this. This is what human being has to do with rest of the 3 orders, right. These 3 orders by themselves are in definite order, they have a definite conduct, they are mutually enriching for each other, they are also mutually enriching for human being, right. So, this is what you can do, you can help or kind of facilitate their activity, their innateness, their inheritance. We are not doing that, that is the problem, right. We have polluted the air, we have polluted the water, we have polluted the soil, right. So, even very respiration is being blocked, the growth is becoming difficult, right, and we are also destroying the seeds. So, what we have to do is to take care of all this, that is take care of the activity or facilitate the activity, the innateness and the inheritance of all these 3 orders. Okay. We are not doing that, and instead we are trying to modify them. When you say genetically modify means you are modifying these plants, you are modifying the animal body, you are also trying to modify the human body, okay, which is not required. Yeah. So, we are not doing what we need to do and we are doing what we do not need to do. So, we do not need to modify them. Okay. So, that is one thing. Okay. So, it is unnecessary activity. So, we are not doing the necessary activity, but and we are doing the unnecessary activity. So, that is one thing. All this is problem is there because ultimately we are not doing what we have to do with human being. So, the major thing has to be done with human being and not with these 3 orders. So, we do not have to try modifying them, they are all okay, they are in harmony, among themselves, they are in harmony with human being. We can only sustain them, facilitate them, but the main thing that we have to do, the any modification that needs to do is in human being. Why? Because human being has this need to know, right, to understand, and only with right understanding the human being can have right feeling, right, and only with right feeling, right understanding and right feeling he can live, in a relationship of mutual fulfillment. So, the right living is possible only with right understanding and with right feeling. So, what we need to do is to work with human being, right. So, facilitating human being to have right understanding, right feeling and therefore right living, and this is done through education and sanskar. So, that is the real activity that we have to perform, okay, which we are not performing. We are not providing the human education and sanskar, the right education and sanskar, okay, which can lead to right understanding and right feeling in human being, and therefore, which can lead to a living, in harmony with entire existence, and therefore result in continuity of happiness. That we are not doing. So, what we really need to do, that we have mentioned, when we are talking about this role of education in this ensuring harmony in nature, is that we have to ensure right understanding in ourselves. With right understanding we have to ensure right feeling in ourselves. With that we have to ensure right living, ensuring continuity of happiness, and if we do it for ourselves, we can be a source of education and sanskar for the next generation. So, it becomes a source of human education and sanskar for the next generation, and if once that happens, then the next generation can continue the same process, right, that is providing this education and sanskar to the next generation who is having right understanding and right feeling and living with continuous happiness. This is what we need to do, this is what we are not doing, right. We are not even appreciating the existence of self, we are not trying to understand the self, we are not trying to identify the need of the self, and therefore, we are not able to really understand the need of the self and the process of fulfillment of this self and the importance of education and sanskar for the self, right. When we do not do that, okay, we do not fulfill the need of the self, we are only trying to fulfill the need of the body, the self remains dissatisfied. When it is dissatisfied, it is trying to fulfill its need through the body, right, by getting sensation, the favorable sensation, or getting some respect or things like that from other people outside, okay. And in order to do that, okay, it is thinking that the need for physical facility is unlimited, and in order to get that unlimited physical facility, it is exploiting other people, it is also exploiting the rest of nature, and then it finds that this nature is not able to yield as much as he wants, which is unlimited, then he wants to modify the rest of nature. So, that is the source of genetic modification, right. The lack of clarity of the self in education, the lack of clarity of the need of the self and fulfillment of the need of the self in education, right. Therefore, trying to fulfill the need of the self through physical facility, through sensation, and all this, and therefore, the need for physical facility becoming unlimited, which cannot be fulfilled by the limited nature, because the nature is limited by its very design. Therefore, you think that the nature is not properly designed, so it must be modified, and therefore, you have genetically modified.
There is that story of that bird.
Yes. So, you want to modify the nature. So, there is a very famous story that one man, he was very all the time complaining that nature is not made like this, and of course, he kept complaining that it would have been designed differently. Okay. So, one day he was sitting below this thing tree, okay, and he saw this pumpkin. You have seen pumpkin, right? Yeah. So, this pumpkin, there is a this thing what you call that datta,
Wine.
wine. So, vine of this pumpkin going up into the tree, and there is a huge pumpkin there hanging from it, and then he saw this grape thing, or other trees like this jamun, what is that called?
Blackcurrant.
Black currant, he is saying. I don't know.
Yeah, jamun it is called, something in English. So, he was he looked at it and he said, look at this funny thing, this so big pumpkin hanging with such a small vine, okay, and such a small this jamun with such a huge tree, very funny this nature's design, okay. And when he was just thinking of it, then that pumpkin somehow it broke down and it fell on his head, right. So, he is saying, I did not mean therefore that that this pumpkin should be in the trees, right. But that is how you keep thinking, right. Yeah. So, this is what is genetic modification, that you will genetically modify this pumpkins, so that you have the trees of pumpkins, and when it starts falling on the head of the people, So, the problem is not doing what we have to do for human being, right. So, that has to be modified, not these plants and the trees and the animal body and the human body. So, I will not say it is inhuman, but I will say it is unnecessary.
Recently, I heard about this Nimbu tree, that they have done some experiments, and now what, there is a tree of Nimbu, and there is the big Nimbu, but without any seed. So seedless Nimbu, there no seed in the.
See, there are different things, this cross fertilization is different, genetic modification is different. Cross fertilization has been taking place in the nature, right. So, you can facilitate that. Okay. So, cross fertilization is something which you try out, and if it fits into the entire scheme of nature, it will have its tradition. So, that anyway has been happening in nature, right. Like different breeds of rice that we have, right, they have developed over the thousands of years of experiment of the nature, not that we experimented, but we can facilitate we can facilitate that process of cross fertilization, and some of them will have the continuity, will have the tradition. So, they will survive, some of them will not have, because they are not the fittest in the whole scheme of nature. That is okay, but that is not what we are doing. We are trying to modify them genetically, that means we are trying to fiddle with the basic DNA or RNA of the seed, okay, and modifying them at that level, and we do not know how it will unfold, right, number 1. Number 2, what will be the effect of this new combination on the human health. So, what I am saying is that we do not need to do this, this is why go into such a risky thing when so much is available in nature and so much in abundance is available. So, if we rightly identify our need of physical facility, and if we try to fulfill it with this existing things, right, it is already abundance is available. I keep quoting this example that today, and this is data 2011, this UN supported data, which says we are producing 4.2 billion tons of grain, right, every year, and if you assume 1 quintal of grain per person per year, we need something like 0.7 billion tons. So, we are already producing 6 times more than what is required, but because we have not been able to identify our needs of physical facility and we are not able to ensure this right utilization, we have so much of crisis. So, to come out of this crisis and have this feeling of abundance, what is required is not start genetically modifying things, but trying to understand the human being, right, and try to understand, ensure this right understanding and right feeling in human being through education and sanskar. If that happens, this human being will be able to identify its need properly, the physical needs particularly, and when it is able to identify its physical need, it will see that yes, it is already having far more than what is required.